every other Gulf region oil-rich nation state is completely in the pocket of the U.S. empire. Iran is the one that does not play ball. And for a very long time, the goal for America and Israel has been to basically either implement a puppet regime in Iran, as they had done so in the past, or why is everybody fucking freaking out about the way I say Qatar? Shut the fuck up. Why is this the major point here? Okay. Yeah, Olaf Berserker. I come here for the laughs. I know, brother. You're a real berserker. You're a real Nord, okay? You're a real white supremacist Nord, I promise. You are just like Vikings. You are just like the Vikings. Keep up the pillage. Keep up the pillage, big dog. Anyway, so that's how you pronounce it. But when America entered this conflict to strike at the nuclear facilities, which is a violation of numerous different international rules that were set in and of itself, because you can't just strike nuclear facilities just because you felt like it. In the midst of a denuclearization negotiation that was taking place, they did so because they were following through on Israel's ambition. Okay? This is Israel's goal. America's goal in the past was to try to use diplomacy against Iran. That was what Barack Obama did. And even in that diplomatic process, there were a lot of sanctions that they implemented on Iran in an effort to bully Iran into submission, to stop their nuclear ambitions dead in its tracks. But it was successful. It gives me no pleasure to report on this, considering that I'm not a big fan of Barack Obama. But Barack Obama's JCPOA agreement was actually a profoundly successful denuclearization agreement. Having said that, however, obviously Donald Trump, the first time when he became president, immediately geared by the 100, we have to fucking blow them up. And there are some people who believe that, but clearly, judging by the latest YouGov poll that came out that I posted, 85% of the country does not want to go to war with Iran. 85% of the country. And the support for going to war with Iran is at like 5%. So what's spectacular about everything that has unfolded in this past week has been that, one, Israel is very clearly guiding the Middle Eastern policy at this point. Just they are in charge. They are holding the wheel, and we are doing everything for Israel, okay? That's number one. Number two, there is no appetite for this, and it's so crazy to me because there's no appetite for it, and they're not even trying. They're not even trying to develop consent for it. They're basically saying, no, this is what it means. America first, baby. Iranians close to me say that the U.S. left the Obama agreement because Iran didn't let inspectors to all the facilities. No, that's not true. That's not true. Iran was completely in cooperation. How do you know that Iran complied with the JCPOA post-American withdrawal? Because Iran kept cooperating with international authorities, including the International Atomic Agency, the Atomic Energy Agency. So that's the reason why they knew that they were cooperating. The International Atomic Energy Agency is supposed to be this independent body. 70% of their resources goes to Iran. They only are there to monitor Iran, okay? Having said that, however, they might actually leave the NPT now, for the record. And it seems to me like the Iranian Parliament's National Security Commission has approved the bill on the suspension with the cooperation with the International Atomic Energy Agency. Because of course they're going to do that. Why wouldn't they do that? Why wouldn't they build nukes now? You cannot stop nuclear proliferation by striking a country's nuclear bases that were designed to be on deep underground, specifically to avoid exactly what is happening right now. If you wanted to actually get Iran to play ball and not have nuclear proliferation, you had to basically Do what Barack Obama did. That was the only successful method because they have scientists. Iran is an incredibly well-educated country. Contrary to what dumbass Americans think, Iran, it has a higher literacy rate than the United States of America. Iran is an incredibly educated country, a much more educated country than the United States of America. Someone said cap. This is my favorite when I say basic facts about a country and people go, nah, that doesn't sound right. Okay, look it up on your own then. What are you supposed to do? Kill every single scientist in the country? Is that what you're going to do? I mean, if we're up to Israel, that is what they would do. In any case, before we get to the stupid ass Hakeem Jeffries Democrat response, non-response, I just wanted to I know that there's a lot of extra attention and extra eyeballs on this process right now because people are confused, and I wanted to give them like a quick refresher, quick background on this history. America and England destabilized Iran initially because Iran democratically elected a moderate social democrat who wanted to basically keep their own oil, to have sovereignty over their own oil. And England, instead of turning around and saying, all right, you know what, British Petroleum, we are going to play ball. This is your oil after all. We'll design a 50-50 split for the revenue. Instead of saying 50-50 revenue split seems like a good idea. That's fair. Fair is fair, right? They said, fuck no, we're only going to give you 10% of the revenue still. How dare you do this? And then they implemented a coup. And then they installed the British puppet, the Shah. And the Shah was so unpopular, and the Iranians were so upset with their with this severe setback on their own sovereignty that they obviously retaliated. And there was a revolution that took place in Iran against the Shah, a revolution that was backed by the socialist forces, social democratic forces, popular mobilization, and of course, the Islamist forces as well. And the Ayatollahs came into power. People were understandably very upset. Okay? They were understandably very upset at Western involvement and Western destabilization. Took 30 seconds to Google. Iran's literacy rate is 89%. America's 79%. I know. I covered it the other day as well. Having said that, that's important to understand why there's so much resentment towards Western destabilization in the country, even if they fucking hate the Ayatollah, okay? There are plenty of secular Iranians that don't like the Ayatollah, that despise the repressive forces of the Islamic Republic on their own domestic affairs. But you know what they hate even more? When they get bombed by fucking Israel, when they get bombed by America, when they are fearful that they're going to be pushed into war. Okay, no matter how many diaspora Iranians that say, I am Persian and I love the Shah, please put the Shah in charge. Iranians in fucking Iran are, that's not like that popular of a sentiment. Does it exist in Iran as well? Of course. Of course that kind of sentiment exists in Iran as well. It's just nowhere near as overwhelmingly popular as it does here in the West. There are royalists in Iran as well. There were royalists initially in Iran as well. The CIA activated them and used them to put the Shah in charge initially. In any case, my point is that is the reason why that is the reason why America's actions and Israel's actions against Iran is most likely galvanizing and drawing up more support for the current repressive regime, okay? And their repression is negligible in this situation. Obviously, they see what's gone on in Gaza, and they don't want that to fucking happen to Tehran. Are you kidding me? Who the fuck would want that? because ultimately, hundreds of millions of dollars that he had gotten from the Adelsons at the time, it was Sheldon Adelson, and his close relationship with Benjamin Netanyahu very quickly turned around and cast aside that denuclearization agreement. Iran still followed the denuclearization agreement, regardless of the fact that Donald Trump had actually cast it aside. And then Donald Trump added additional sanctions to the state of Iran, at which point they started nuclear proliferation again. Because the real goal was never to stop the Iranian, the Islamic Republic from getting nukes. The real goal always has been regime change. The casus belli for regime change and the military action necessary to, in their minds, create either regime change or a failed state in Iran was by claiming that they had nukes, WMDs. A lot of Americans who are old enough remember the WMD memes from the Iraq War. They lied about Iraq having weapons of mass destruction, and they used that as a reason for why they had to go to war with Iraq. Now, of course, this came in the aftermath of 2 years of unlimited propaganda post 9/11. It was immediately after 9/11, so obviously people were a lot more invested into going to war, as opposed to doing this in 2025. In the ashes of the war on terror, where everybody fucking understands that America lied to go to war with Iraq, and it was a major fucking L for America in general, and it caused so much instability in the region and had tremendous impact, and it's deeply unpopular, so unpopular that Donald Trump literally ran against the Iraq war in 2016 against Hillary Clinton for supporting the Iraq war and won. It's not working. The same meta is not really working unless you already have tremendous amounts of motivated reasoning to believe that Iran does have nukes. And COM was being run out of Qatar, 10,000 troops positioned there. There's troops in Bahrain. There's troops in Syria, like 1,000, I think, or so. There are troops in Iraq. There's American troops all around. And there are plenty of opportunities. There's plenty of strike opportunities for Iran. But one of the things that I initially suspected and called out ahead of time was that given Iran's track record of restraint in this tit for tat, in this back and forth that was happening with Israel, and also in the limited response that took place when Donald Trump in his last tenure severely escalated and killed Qasem Soleimani, the famous Iranian head of the IRGC Quds force, like their special forces. When Donald Trump killed Qasem Soleimani in his first tenure, the Iranian retaliation was once again incredibly fucking limited, and I think that the generals that were in Trump's ear this time around, on top of like the Israeli influence in this process, because it's pretty obvious that we are now letting Israel guide our foreign policy in the region. They're in the driver's seat, and they are running the show, right? This is these escalations that are happening, and no interest in negotiation whatsoever has always been Israel's most important policy. Iran is like the crown jewel that they want to take out in the region because it is a funder of all of these. It is a funder of all these resistance groups that resist against Israel. It goes against their ambition of doing this Greater Israel project, which is an exterminationist project. It's unfolding in Gaza right now, and it's happened in southern Lebanon in the past, and of course. For this reason, Iran being a sovereign nation state and being able to create like logistical supply chains in the entire region was a major issue for Israel's ambitions of developing a larger state of Israel, that's their goal, right? So this obviously is against America's interest in the region as well, because America is aligned with Israel on this. Israel is an extension of American imperialism in the region, and Israel is a forward operating base for the United States of America, as I've said time and time again. It is an unsinkable aircraft carrier. It has its own espionage capabilities. It is a it plays a very important role in all of our operations in the Middle East, a resource-rich region that we want to dominate and control. Obviously, considering the entire, considering the other Gulf nation states, Saudi Arabia and Qatar as well, and the UAE and every